The Neville brothers.
Oh, I've dreamt the Pula stayed.
Oh, jeez.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, I'm going home. I couldn't care less with that. If that's not for
Press
the
stop.
if we don't get a BAFTA for that, there's something fucking wrong.
He's going to love them. Who is Dave?
Good evening, welcome to a very special Red Army Social. We heard the news this morning, Tony Pulis has left Middlesbrough Football Club. Marc's on the couch, and I've got his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Brother-in-law as well.
Mr. Lee, by the way.
It's Lee, by the way.
He's a stunt double.
Sorry, I do that. Do you know Terry, by the way?
No.
You don't? Oh, we used to have a guy come in called Terry, by the way, and we used to walk around saying, it's Terry, by the way.
By the way, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use it.
Sorry, yeah. So, guys, I think we walk to the news this morning. There was a statement on the Middlesbrough Football Club website. The first time this season we've heard Steve Gibson talk, although we didn't hear him talk. You can imagine what his voice sort of sounds like.
A couple of years ago I did, I think.
I'd like to thank Tony for his hard work and commitment over the past 18 months. He'd been a joy to work with and a complete gentleman. 2 years ago we invested heavily in the squad in terms of transfer fees and salaries in an attempt to regain our Premier League status. This happened before Tony's arrival. Not quite sure what he's alluding to there. Over the past 18 months, Tony's been proactive not only in the ambition to win football matches and promotion at the Premier League, but also in addressing our financial position in order to comply and respect with the Championship fair play criteria. He's ensured that the club is stable and strong for the future. He leaves us in excellent condition. Marc, this morning when you got up and you heard the news, you tried to ring me fairly quickly. What was your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thought is, mate, as we recorded the show, which will be going out on Freeview, Channel 7 and
Teesside TV is what you're getting
That's
at.
the one we have to plug, yeah. Going out on Teesside TV, we actually said live last night on YouTube that it would be announced this morning, and it happened.
It's like we knew. It's like the club had sent us something.
Yeah.
We're joking. It
Which
doesn't
we
happen.
don't,
It's never
like,
going to happen.
Before you sue us, we don't. But no, look, it was no surprise. You knew my thoughts. I didn't think there was any way back for him. I think soon as and I'm sure we're going to go into it, I don't think the club helped him in his 18 months he was here to sort of like get the fans further on board. I thought he, like I've said a million times, he got the fans on board initially, speaking about where he comes from, tried to relate to us, to be fair. And to be fair, he did. Galvanised in the first season, took over from Monk, who spent a lot of money, and that's what the chairman's alluding to. And got us to in the playoffs. Obviously, that ended in a damn squib. But then a stupid comment of saying 7th is probably better than, 6th last season is a silly thing to say, because the fans are here and the fans, we wanted to be in the playoffs.
Hold on to what you've said there about his last comments that sort of tipped the fans, because I have got a question on that. Lee, when you got up this morning, you heard that he'd gone. What was your initial reaction?
I wasn't surprised, to be honest. I think it's probably been coming for weeks. I think that the club were probably holding on for a couple of weeks, thinking they were going to get into the playoffs. Eventually, I think probably no surprise to all the Boro fans, it didn't happen. And I think there was an inevitability that he had to go. I slightly disagree with what he's saying, that 7th is a good finish. With the squad that they had, I do feel like they should have done better. So for me, it was inevitable that he was going to go. So I can't say I'm surprised.
So let's jump to that now then, before we go on the fact that he's departed the club. He did make the comment that he feels that this season finishing 7th was better for the club to finish 7th compared to last season's playoff, whatever you want to call it, against Aston Villa. Now, when I first heard that, I have to admit, I thought, actually, I agree with him, in the sense that last season we had Traore, we had Bamford, we had Gibson.
Yeah.
This season, we've weakened the team by taking them from the club and not replacing them, and that's my initial thought when I heard him say that. Was for me was,
and I think that's how he was trying to portray it. I think, but to Joe Blogg's fan like us on the street, it's not what we want to hear, because it was only at Christmas, and by the way, it was just after Christmas, back into January, we still had players like Randolph and Clayton saying, we're still going for automatic promotion. You know, and then the gaffer was coming out and saying, well, actually, playoffs is our aim. So if they can't get it right, we had no communication with the club. And they, look, we've spoken 1,000 times on this show about the communication with the club.
Red Army.
Yeah, Red Army have a dig at the communication show, but it's been terrible, you know, the communication. I'm hoping, though, that the club's going to learn a lot from this season with groups like ourselves. We're not the only fan shows, you know, what are out there. We're the best, mate, but we're not the only one, you know. And there's obviously fans' blogs and there's podcasts and all that, what people do. They need to come out and chat more, because for me, I hope they'll learn a lot from this. I'm sure we're going to come on to it. Could they have helped him more? I think they could have, to be fair. I just think the style of players probably got him never got him the offer of the extension, to be fair.
Lee, when Tony Pulis first came to the club, is it a manager that you wanted? Were you happy with him when he first came in?
No, I said at the time that given the job that he just fell out of at West Brom, we've seen the state that they came down from the Premiership in. It wasn't an appointment that I wanted. I think that the Boro fans over the last couple of years are a little bit sick and tired of defensive style managers. I can't remember the last time we had a manager that played on the front foot. It seems obviously we had Karanka, who was very defensive minded. Even going back to Southgate, McLaren, I don't recall, probably since Robson, was having a manager that was forward thinking at all. So it wasn't an appointment that I particularly endorsed, and it's proved to be the case. I think probably for the last 18 months, most of the Boro fans would agree that it's been among the worst football that we've had for years. So no, it wasn't for me, I must admit.
Did you? At what point did you really think, you know what? You know, obviously you weren't happy that you came in the first place, but what point were you really sort of Pulis out?
I think he had an opportunity. I think and this started with Agnew, when Karanka went, Agnew had the opportunity to change the way that we were playing. He must have heard the Boro fans being absolutely fed up with the way that we were playing. He then had the opportunity to come in Pulis. He will have heard exactly the same things. He had the opportunity to come in and think, right, we are going to play some forward-thinking football here. Even if that was a bog-standard 4-4-2 with two wingers, two centre-forwards, he then goes back to exactly the same things that previous managers that were playing one up front at home against mid-table teams. We go one up, and instead of going for the second goal like any good team does, he seems to make negative substitutions to try and hold on. I think at that point, what I was fearing came true, really, and it was just back to the same old thing that we've suffered, I would say, for the last
Mark, there's been a few decisions this year. You know, we had Britt taken off for George Friend. 10 minutes later, we had a defender taken off for a striker. We've had tactics that we've sat there flabbergasted to. We mentioned on Red Army TV last night our lowest point of the season. Did these tactical decisions, the Brit George Friend saga, the Besic towel fight that roused some passion, did that help or did that hinder Boro's season?
I tell you what, mate, there's all four questions there in one phrase.
There is, but I know you can answer it.
Do you know what? And can you see my role on this, mate? I'm a tactical genius.
Really?
You know that anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
No, but look.
Yeah, anyway, thanks, Mark.
Listen, it's style of play, and we only have to look at the two teams who've been automatically promoted, Norwich and Sheffield United. I said this last night, I've said it 1,000 times. A team which didn't spend a lot of money, relatively compared to what we spent, and the chairman's absolutely right there 2 years ago, you know, 50 million quid. I think Norwich spent just over 5 million, you know. However, they give youth a chance, and they've always played attacking football on the front foot, like Lee said. At home, Norwich, 93 minutes, they were still trying to score past us at 1-0 up. They could have quite easily closed the shot, but we were never going to score. And they didn't. Good teams crack on all the time. The other thing is, I think when you play defensive football, and again, I hate to say it because his head won't get out the door, he's absolutely bang on right, because, you know, it's probably been over 10 years that the Boro's played what I would say negative defensive football, right back over 5 or 6 managers. Now, is that a club thing? Is that a club thing? We don't know. Is somebody at the club telling you know, telling their managers that this is how we want to play our style of football? Why would you take the job?
Yeah. Well, we alluded this last night. I made a point last night. Having listened to various other radio stations, I've heard Sam Allardyce, I've heard Tim Sherwood, I've heard Simon Grayson. This week in particular, have all come in and said when they've gone for interviews at clubs, the board have told them the style of football that they want that manager to play. If you're already under the cosh before you've even signed on the dotted line in terms of being told how you're going to play, because surely being told how they want you to play will ultimately dictate the players that they're going to allow you to bring in. If they've said we want the defensive, we don't want to go down, we want to finish top half. If we get to the playoffs, promotion, fantastic, but we don't want to be bottom half of the table. If you're going to go for somebody like Billy Sharp, if you're going to go for somebody like Mo Besic on a permanent deal, are you likely with that sort of target to be able to bring in them players, or are they going to say, well, actually, Charlie Adams available, Jermaine Defoe's available, we'll bring them in because they're past it but they're experienced? Is it as broad as that, or does the manager have the final say?
Well, I would like to think that and let's be honest, he's been around the block, Andy Tony Pulis. He's not a young manager. This is what you might suffer bringing a young manager into the club now, because they will come in being their first job or their first major job, if you like, and we're going to go on to some of the names in the frame shortly. But if you bring a young, let's use Woodgate for instance. I think he's odds-on favourite at the minute with the bookies. If you bring him in, he knows the Middlesbrough way under probably 2 or 3 managers. Whether he agrees with it or not, he knows that's safe. So for me, it's an entertainment industry. And football's all about opinion. I would rather see us have a go and get beat 2-1 or 3-2. But I walk away from that stadium, certainly at home, thinking, we've had a go there. Not score a goal and put 5 at the back and just wait for them to equalise. It might take 80 minutes, it might take 8 minutes, but eventually they're going to break us down.
With you saying there that football is an entertainment industry, I agree to a point it is. You're paying your hard-earned cash, you want to go and you want to watch something that you're going to come away with and be like, you know what, that was brilliant. From the board of directors, from Steve Gibson's point of view, surely he cannot look at that as football has to be entertaining, because he's thinking, hang on a minute, this is either going to bring in millions or it's going to cost me millions. As the owner of the club, he cannot be looking at it, Lee, as though it's an entertainment industry. He wants results and he wants positive results.
I absolutely agree. I don't think at any stage Pulis will have gone for an interview and Gibson said, I want you to play negative football to get us into the top half of the table. I can't see that conversation will have ever happened. The difference we had with Karanka is that he got results and he eventually got us up. Yes, it was negative football, but he got us up. So the fans can live with that. That's not an issue because he's getting the results. But the proof's in the pudding with Pulis is the fact that we've been playing rubbish football and we still haven't got anywhere near we haven't got in the playoffs. If we had got in the playoffs against the likes of Villa, Derby, Leeds, I honestly believe that we'd have got absolutely, we'd have got tortured by all of those teams in the playoffs because we're that far away from them. So yes, it is a results business. However, if I had a choice this year of watching Brentford, who finished mid-table, or Boro, I know which one I'd have chosen, because at least when you go and watch Brentford, you're going to be entertained. You come to watch the Boro, yeah, we might scrape a 1-0 result or a 2-1 result, but it's not entertaining football at all. And you like you said, you're paying quite a lot of money for tickets now to watch what isn't particularly, it's not a spectacle whatsoever.
And remember, there's times in the season when you can play negative football. If you're up there kicking around the chance of getting automatic promotion, and you're playing a top side at home, and you think, I'm going to set up defensively, I'm going to hit him on the break as if I'm away from home, and then we're just going to sit and park the bus and get the 3 points, well then it's the best interview ever at the end of the game, isn't it? But if you don't, it doesn't work, and you get beat 3-1 at home, you've got to answer the consequences. That's the problem, it's fine margins. For me, there's times in the season when you can do that, if it's available. We were doing that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we had a decent start of this season. Braithwaite,
yeah, absolutely.
Someone we very rarely talk about now, but Braithwaite was on fire first 3 or 4 games. He was scoring goals. He was the best player on the pitch in my eyes. Then gets to the first international break and wants to be away for whatever reason. That's for me when it started going more negative, because I don't think Tony trusted anybody else.
Yeah.
In terms
of What you've just said there about the negative sort of defensive football we've been playing, what is the difference then between the style of football that Tony Pulis has played and the style of football that Karanka played that everyone seemed to be behind and enjoyed watching, because it was equally defensive?
It was.
You know, so what's your opinion on that?
For me, the difference was we had a little bit of quality at the top end of the pitch. So yes, we set up ourselves as defensively. It was either 4 or 5 at the back with your 2 sitting midfielders. However, going forward in front of that, you had the likes of Tomlin, you had Bamford. We had, a lot of people didn't like him, but we had Kike, who was a good target man. The current squad haven't got that. We've got Sombalonga. Yes, I know he's chipped in with a fair amount of goals, but we haven't got any creativity whatsoever. Under Karanka, Tomlin would do something brilliant. Bamford would change a game. I think we played away at Derby where he got 2 goals and he was fantastic. He's proven it again at Leeds. This is a player that couldn't get a kick for us, and we've ended up selling to Leeds and he's gone on to excel again. I feel that it's the same type of football, but Pulis hasn't got that plan B. We haven't got that little bit of spark going forward. Whether or not that's his fault or whether or not that's just the personnel, I'm not quite sure, but I still think there was enough in that squad to allow us to play on the front foot a little bit more often than we did do.
I mean, you know where I sit with the personnel. I've said it 1,000 times. I find it really hard to knock players because I don't know any amateur player, Northern League player, Sunday League player who doesn't go out and want to win a football match on a Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday night. So it's not for the want to try. And however, there is styles of football, and unfortunately, the style of football that Tony Pulis wanted us to play at the club. Now, if he's sat there thinking that's the only style I can play, 'cause I've got that personnel, there's either one or two things. He's having a dig back at the club to say, well, he didn't back me in the transfer window, so this is what I have to do. But ultimately, you know, we've all been around football enough. I would put them names to places, and if the results weren't right on the pitch, that's when we can blame the personnel. Me personally, I think you've got the personnel at our club to get in the playoffs this year. Automatic promotion, I think it might, and we said it on the transfer show we done in January. I said 2 or 3, just to add to the spice now, would probably kick us on to have a go for automatic promotion. It never happened. We didn't bring any, well, we brought Mikel in, didn't we, at the last hour? But again, I don't think and we spoke 1,000 times, I don't think we've got a forward at the club now who Tony Pulis would ever start.
I think January was the problem, wasn't it? In January, we didn't recruit. We got ourselves in a fantastic position because defensively we were brilliant at that stage. I think we were probably 3rd, maybe even pushing for the 2 automatic spots. In January, we brought in Van La Parra, who didn't do anything. I'm not even sure if he played.
Played 20 minutes at Newport, didn't
we didn't at that stage, and it is crucial because you sign 1 or 2 at that stage, it kicks you on, it gives the whole squad a lift, and we didn't do that. Whether or not that was the club's fault and it didn't back Pulis, or he wasn't able to get those players across the line, I don't think we're ever going to find out, are we? But that was a crucial stage.
It's mystifying that people do say that he couldn't get these deals across the line. Yet he manages to bring Mikel into the club.
A very defensive player. If I was an attacking player, I wouldn't want to come and play for Tony Pulis. I've got a lot of sympathy for the Sombalonga. Bear in mind, I don't know how many goals he finished on. It must have been
14, 15?
I think so.
It was round about that one. He's got 2 penalties.
I think, yeah.
Last
so
2 games.
He scored 15 goals in one of the most negative sides I've ever seen. I genuinely believe that we could have had Luis Suarez playing in front for us. If you're not going to give him chances, they're not going to score goals. Now, I'm not saying that Sombalonga is brilliant. However, we didn't give him the opportunity to score more goals than he did. If I was an attacking player, I would not want to come and sign for Pulis at all. Mikel, he must be rubbing his hands because he knows he's going to be in the team every week because we play with 2 defensive midfielders. Fantastic.
Yeah, just sit in the park and play the ball forward. Look, Mikel is let's not beat around the bush. Mikel is a Rolls Royce of a player.
Fantastic.
He showed that in the Championship. Undoubtedly, there's now talks and rumours of him signing for a Premier League club next year to play back in the Premier League. Look, he wouldn't have done that still playing in China. He's done that because he came to the Boro, showed what he could do, and he's going to move on. However, I've got to agree. I think he wanted. Well, look, it's common knowledge. He wanted wingers, and he wanted the forward man. Couldn't bring them in. Could only bring Van La Parra in. And again, We know now, well, we don't know for definite, but it's odds on certain. The reason he brought Van der Parra in was because of the Downing saga. Couldn't play Downing, so he's brought a wide man in to take his place. He's looked at him in training and thought, what have I signed here?
But even then, even when he did have the opportunity then to bring Downing back into the squad, after previous comments this season of, I wish I had a squad full of Stuart Downings, he's a fantastic professional, I would love to just have a squad full of Downings, his attitude on the training pitch is phenomenal. He went on and on and on. When he was given the chance to play him again, that I feel probably could have helped win one of these games that we lost
on the bounce.
Possibly could have been a different result had Downing played with his experience, with that left foot, that right foot that we all remember and we go on about. He didn't want to play him, even though he was available again. You've got a player there that's desperate to play, is being held back by the board. When he finally gets there and says, you know what, just get rid of it, I want to play, he's left on the bench anyway. Lee, what's you're a player. If you're...
I wouldn't go that far.
if you've got the same contract situation, you're available to play, surely you're banging on that gaffer's door. I can play, I want to play, put me in.
I can't disagree with any of that. Downing, for me, every time that I've seen him this year, has been one of our best players. Whether or not, I know you've alluded to wanting to play with wingers there, but there's attacking formations without having to play with wingers. For me, at his stage of his career now, Downing should have been playing as in a number 10, like Bamford did, like Tomlin did when he was here, behind probably a Sommerlonger and Fletcher, which is the strike force that he stumbled upon. I think with those three attacking players, and I completely agree, I would have had Downing in the team every single week. It then allows you to play those more defensive players, because if you can have two holding midfielders and still play with Downing, still play with two centre forwards, especially at home, because there were so many times that we're playing against lower, bottom of the table teams and still going with this one up front, which clearly wasn't working. Yes, if you play with attacking wing backs, I mean, he tried to go to 5 at the back for the majority of the season with wing backs that are centre halves. It was never ever going to work, and for me, he didn't put the right personnel in the right positions. I think he got himself set in this 5-3-2 formation and wouldn't really deviate from it, which was the biggest issue. But there was still enough quality in that squad to go forward.
And in terms of Downing, even he wasn't allowed to start a game, but there was a few games he came on as a substitute. He was given an impossible task, Mark. He was put on the pitch after both Sommerlonger and Fletcher had been taken off and Hugel had been put up. You want a player that probably doesn't have the legs that he once had, probably doesn't have the quality of pass that we know he once had. And he's now just lost two strikers that probably can fairly easily mastermind something to put it in the back of the net. We know Tony Pulis like to take midfielders off for defenders. So if you can imagine that he's taken a midfielder off, he's put Downing on. But then he's gone and taken off one or two of his strikers and put another striker on that's going to take 10 minutes to get into the swing of the game, to feel the game and get used to the conditions that they're playing at.
Look, mate,
it's an impossible task.
It's a thankless task, yeah. I mean, he came on sometimes, with probably the weight of the world on his shoulders, because he was probably, when he came on, probably the only attack-minded player on there. You are right. Look, we haven't got the Stuart Downing like back in the Stour Bucharest and the Bath games where he's beating his man and pumping the ball into the box and we're scoring goal after goal. Look, that was nearly 20 years ago, wasn't it?
West Ham didn't have that though when he was there. West Ham didn't have that, and he got their Player of the Year by playing as a 10.
That's right. That's right. And he came to our club as West Ham's Player of the Year. And we prized him back to a Championship side to come back to his hometown club. For me, he hasn't been utilised enough. Maybe the next gaffer coming in would utilise him. I've got one question. I'm not here to give questions.
No, go for it.
I've got one. Obviously, we've got Lee played lots of football. Lots of Northern League games. Played under many coaches. Is the coach's style of play, Lee, can it cause negative thoughts to a player? And the reason I'm asking that is, I don't agree that any player goes out on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Wednesday night and thinks to themselves, I'm just going to not give me 100% here. However, the style of play, you either believe in it or you don't. And I honestly believe, my own opinion, I have to say that for legal reasons, I think I've watched the likes of Clayton play this year and I've thought he's just going through the motions because he thinks, we can't get the ball forward, he wants us to go back. It's all negative. I think it bred into the players. And when we had the dip mid-season, the players didn't believe in the style of play. And that's what I was asking. Obviously played a lot of games under many coaches. If you've got a coach who sticks to the guns and says, look, that's the way we're playing, and that's it, and the player doesn't agree with it, will it show? Will he still go out and give his 100%, or will it show on the pitch?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think he would still go out. I would like to think that he would still go. Certainly I would. I haven't agreed with a number of my managers, and I would still go out and give 100%. But as regards getting the best from yourself or getting the best from the players, you've probably always got a nagging doubt at the back of your mind thinking, he's not getting the best out of me here because he's not playing the way that I would want him to play. Hugill must think the same. Hugill thrives on crosses. Us playing with no wingers and two wing-backs as two centre-halves as wing-backs, he must be thinking, I'm not going to get the service that I thrive on here, that's made me into a good player. So in the back of his mind, that probably will have a negative effect. Assombalonga wants to run in behind. If the ball's not going from front to back quick enough, is he going to think, I'm not going to go make that run in there because I know it's not going to come because we're just going to go side to side. So I think inevitably it will always have an effect on a player's mindset if you're playing in a system that doesn't quite suit you.
And that leads me back to where we were talking about styles of play, Phil, because a couple of weeks ago we came up with a plan and I showed a formation that I used at my last team, men's team I was playing with, and it was quite...
Goes on about this every week.
But it worked, mate, didn't it? It worked. You know it worked, and it got the points. It might have been luck. Certainly it was the skill base because the players had the skill to do it. However, you've got to be sometimes be a little bit bold, and you've got to sort of think out the box a little bit. I just think Tony was great for his time, and I just think the modern way football's going now, you need to think outside the box every game. Not like, I think we had someone last night say 4-4-2, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think he was called Mike Bassett. Mike Bassett, one who messaged in.
I'd rather see 4-4-2 than what we've been seeing this season.
Well, you mentioned the likes of Hugill and things like that. We've got another striker called Rudy Gestedt who scored a hatful of goals at his previous club, a hatful, with another striker who we ruined in Jordan Rhodes. Them two scored a hatful of goals at their previous club.
He's back scoring goals now, wasn't he, Rhodes?
Because they use wingers and then get the ball in the box. We haven't done that. But again, I've got to sort of like, I can give Tony a little bit of credence for that because we've played negative football for 9 or 10 years.
Gents, let me. There's a lot of comments coming in, so I'm just going to read a few of these out. Holgate Ender says nightmare over onwards and upwards. He's come back on and says it took too long, in his opinion, for Tony Pulis to be pushed out the door. Paul Burke's been on and said Juventus announced that they're on the lookout for a new manager 2 hours after Pulis left the Boro. Is it a coincidence? Holgate Ender's been back on and says shooting to replace him. John Lillyston says it's paramount we get behind the new manager, whoever that may be.
Definitely.
David Jackson says let's change Boro's philosophy after all this defensive-based football and appoint an attacking-minded new boss. If the fans are entertained, they will get behind the Boro. Saul Starlin 2002 says Michael Reisiger, Jonathan Woodgate, Aitor Karanka, 3 names in the frame to replace Tony. Chris Lofthouse in, has been on Cowley.
I'm missing him, are you?
Cowley brothers for me, New Clough and Taylor.
Oh, come on, New Clough and Taylor.
He's been back on.
I love him, but he's gone berserk there, hasn't he?
Saul Starlin says Mikel Arteta link, or the link with Mikel Arteta, I wouldn't dare. Lofthouse has been back on and says, who are these absolute lunatics asking for Ravanelli? The same people slating Woodgate as an option for being new to coaching. Holgate Ender says Liverpool, Man City players bought into the style of play.
Yep.
And Billy Tomo says we love Phil Neville. Just going to block him. Just going to block him.
Block him, yeah. No, look, probably all fantastic guys and know lots about football. We just remember we've got the opportunity as fans to sit on this side of the camera. We just think exactly what the other guys on the other side of the camera are thinking. We just have an opportunity to say it. There's some people in there. Look, our good friend Chris has bleated on about the Cowley brothers from is it Lincoln City? Is it
Something like that. Yeah.
Is this the manager who got these had them up for the leagues, isn't he?
Yeah. And look, he's bleated on all season, and look, and he might have a point. You know, I've been reading loads of good things. I just think is the step up too much for the Championship. Bear in mind, you know, where Boro fans and maybe the club expect us to be next year. What was one good comment there is no one mentioned it. Young manager, that's the thing. Attack-minded manager, I agree with, but do we want a young manager? Because there's attack-minded managers out there. It just means we've got to go and prize them away from somewhere. My bet, if I was going to be a betting man, Michael Reisig, he's got links with the club. You know, he's doing an absolutely fantastic job in the coaching roles he's doing over in Amsterdam. So look, for me, there's no reason why the chief executive and the head of recruitment get on the same plane as Mr. Dave Roberts heading towards Amsterdam last week. For me, now we know there's a winger in the mist that has got no contract, which we might have been. Do you send the chief executive to go and speak to a winger, or do you send the chief executive to go and speak to a potential manager? I don't know. I think, you know, Michael Reisig probably ticks all the boxes at the minute. Attack-minded, you only have to look how Ajax play at the minute. Attack-minded, relatively young to the game, hungry. You know, Woodgate, again, as much as I love him as a player and a local lad, you know what I'm like with the local lads. Is he too much Boro? Does he know how the chairman wants us to do and what we can and can't do? You want someone to come in and just go, look, this is mine, I'm putting my stamp on it. You know, it's my job.
Well, I'm not going to lie, mate. You've just ruined 2 pages in the notes. We normally talk about who's coming in at the last thing.
Go on then.
Keep your questions, your comments coming in. Like the Facebook page. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell notification. Every time we go live, you'll get that. There are a lot of changes happening over the course of the summer. Of course, we are launching Red Army Radio 24/7. He's told me I can.
Oh, can we say that now?
Say it now.
Oh.
24/7 Boro chat. It will be available everywhere.
Red Army
Please do
Radio
get involved with
coming
that.
in your ears.
Mate, that was terrible. You've thrown me off that link, so that's fine. We'll go on to this one then. Right, I've compiled a list here, the last 10 managers or so, all the way back to Steve McLaren. We've had the likes of Steve McLaren, Gareth Southgate, Colin Cooper, Gordon Strachan, Steve Agnew, Tony Mowbray, Mark Venus, Aitor Karanka, Gary Monk, and of course Tony Pulis. If you were to hazard a guess as to which one of them has been our most successful manager, who do you think it is?
Well, the most successful is McLaren, isn't it? Because he won something.
Well,
Okay.
What do you mean? Do you mean by winning something, or do you mean win ratio?
Bit of both. Go both.
If I was going to go, well, I know the answer, Phil, because I'm a boffin.
Because you've read it before we come on air.
Look, Lee's absolutely bang on right. Obviously, McLaren got us into Europe. We had 2 European campaigns, and won us our first ever trophy in the League Cup. However, I probably think win ratio is probably the guy who's gone out the door now, in the small tenure that he's got.
Okay. And in terms of win ratio for yourself?
Karanka, probably.
Okay,
Off the
yeah,
back of the
absolutely
promotion
spot on. Aitor Karanka.
No, he's not right.
Is our most successful in terms of win ratio.
No, he's not right. Tell him he's not right, Phil.
Totted up over the way I've done it is each manager must have managed at least more than 50 games.
Phil's got it wrong.
Aitor Karanka, 171 in total, 46.7% win-loss ratio.
He must have had a good one. Pulis, though, really.
Coming in second place, 43.7% was Tony Pulis.
Yeah.
He won 35 of his 80 games
Second.
in charge.
Second, yeah. Story of my life, mate.
Tony Mowbray came third in that, even though he endured a really tough time with his own financial worries at the club and trying to.
Well, history will dictate that Pulis and Mowbray's reign were nigh on the same, really, because they had to do the financial constraints.
In fourth place, Steve McLaren, when we're looking at win-loss, 38.8%. That was 250 games.
Slightly skewed, isn't it? Because McLaren's doing that in the Premiership, isn't he? Whereas Mowbray, Karanka, Pulis, we're talking Championship level here, so it's a lot more difficult to do that in the Premiership. So
the worst manager out of them, Gareth Southgate.
That doesn't surprise me.
29.8% win-loss ratio. He won 45, lost 63.
I don't want to say the name because you know that I have nightmares, but the little Scottish guy, his name starts with a S.
He's in the top 5.
No way.
He's in the top 5.
Is he?
He's in the top 5.
Bring him back.
For managers, for managers with over 50 games managed, he's in the top 5 between sort of Tony Pulis and Steve McLaren.
It's ridiculous football, isn't it?
And he won 81, lost 84, 36.6% win-loss ratio.
I have nightmares about that, man.
Other people in there, Gary Monk, 46% win-loss ratio, but he only managed 26 games. We've got Mark Venus is in there. He won 1, lost 1, drew 1, so 33.33% recurring. Steve Agnew.
How did he get on?
Didn't win a game, did he?
0%
Yeah.
win-loss ratio because he lost both games.
Nice bloke, though,
Bless him.
isn't he? Nice bloke.
Colin Cooper, 50% win-loss. Only took charge of 2 games. He won 1 and drew 1. So that completes the list. But Steve Agnew...
Never been beat, has he? Copes?
Well, no. But to be fair, I mean, giving him the chance, would fans have backed even Colin Cooper? We have this weird fascination. You've mentioned it there, bringing him in Reisiger there. Why do Boro fans have this weird fascination with bringing back ex-players?
We do, mate, and we tend to kill them, you know. I've spoke many times, and I've spoke to Lee about the worst ever game of, not the game of football, but the worst ever time I've ever been at a football game is when you've got someone like Tony Mowbray. Let's be honest, he is my club hero. From me being small on the terraces, he's my Captain Marvel, and I've got some young lad shouting and screaming and effing and blanding in his face as he's walking down a tunnel. That, for me, just shows you how we kill heroes at this club. So we have got a fascination, and look, rightly so, people are coming on and be saying Janino for the job, Ravanelli, right? Let's look at the trouble Rav caused here. He scored some fantastic goals, probably one of the best strikers we've ever seen at the club. However, he's a diva. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be a diva in charge of footballers. It's not a good recipe, you know, for a football club. But we'll see.
So you know, the last 6 permanent managers there, Tony Pulis comes in as the second most successful in terms of win-loss. Of course, that's not taking away Steve McLaren's win there with the cup run. A lot of people are banding around Aitor Karanka coming back. Arguably, win-loss wise, most successful. 180, lost 49, drew 42. So he's winning that significantly in terms of games won compared to drawn and lost. Lee, would you have him back at the club if he wasn't going to spit his dummy out and walk out, if he wasn't going to sit there and tell us all he wishes the board would back him more in transfer windows? Would you accept him back at the club now he's matured a little bit?
I personally, and it is a personal opinion, I don't want us to have another. I want the next appointment to be a positive one. Yes, a lot of people. Yes, Karanka got results as you've just mentioned there. For me, as a fan and as a supporter and someone that pays my money to go and watch, I want the next appointment to be a positive one. So whether that's getting a young manager in, be it Woodgate or a manager that's going to make attempts to try and take us forward. I think Karanka would probably come in and with this squad would do a good job, and I actually think he'd probably do a better job than Pulis. But do I see him as being the manager that's going to take us forward? I think he'd probably get us in the playoffs next year, potentially get us promoted, but then 2 years down the line, I think we get exactly the same thing back in the Premiership. I think we'll be playing the style of football that he knows. So, in my personal opinion, would be no. I wouldn't want to see him back.
Mark, what's your thoughts?
Look,
He's done an interview today,
Yeah.
sort of basically saying that he'd never rule out a return. He has a fantastic relationship with the
you never
chairman.
say never in football, do
you
you?
know,
But
he's available, of course.
I just think for me, I think he said in that interview, I've read that interview, he says he's still really good friends with the chairman. And look, I don't know. I'm on the fence a little bit with it because for me, I'm a bit like Lee. I'd just like it to be something new. I think there's enough dynamic people out there now available, and I think that's probably the reason why the football clubs took its decision not to extend Pulis' contract, because there is some young and up and coming people out there at the minute. And look, you're going to go through them. We've seen who's been bandied about, talking about the Boro. And we're a club who looks after first-time managers. You only have to look at that. Brian Robson, first management gig. McLaren, first gig. Karanka, first gig. Southgate, first gig. Monk, to a certain extent. I know he'd had a little pop at Leeds, but
Swansea.
We give him the money, didn't we, here to try and build something massive. So we are a club who looks after people that way and doesn't swing the axe on. Well, Gary Monk probably wouldn't agree with me, but doesn't swing the axe on the first attempt.
Would you see Karanka being here in 5 years though if he came back?
No, and do you know what?
I think it'd be the same cycle again.
I think the fans would probably see that not as a step back, but as a just
a halt.
It's just a
bit
halt.
of a pause.
And remember, Karanka came here and spent money. He didn't come here and work on a shoestring, did he? He come here and spent money. So we don't even know if he can do that without spending money. So for me, again, it's the nostalgia thing. All Boro fans do it. You know, he's available. He was great. One thing I wanted to say, and I wanted to say last time you said it, and I forgot to say it. You asked a question to Lee and said that Karanka had played the same style of football, but the fans took to him a little bit. There's one name in there what we forgot to mention, and it was Leo Perkovic stood to the right hand side of him, geeing every fan up and feeling everything. Because one thing we say 1,000 times on this show is majority, if not all, Boro fans who sit the other side of that camera and go at that Riverside know their football and they love passion, and that's what got Karanka. Some of them dark days when we were playing poor at home and didn't get the result, Leo still went on the pitch and jeered the red faction up and went round and clapped and done this, and it still got the fans galvanised. We sort of forgot that little bit there. He had him to his right hand side. He didn't have him at Forest. You know, look, do I think Leo could do the job? Maybe it's probably a step too far at the minute, but in some capacity, you want someone with passion as well. That's another thing.
Well, I think Saul Starling has answered that question as well. He's just put 3 giant red crosses on the stream. Or 4 giant red crosses. He does not want Karanka back at this club. Loud and clear.
I think that's about Houghton.
Well, I'm just reading what it says.
He said what? Houghton in, Lofty out? I'm sick of this. Like, I was just for the camera, I am Lofty in.
You're the one that brought him along as an audition for tonight.
You told me I was taking Lofty's, but I don't even know Lofty, and you said I was taking his place.
He's doing a good job, though, isn't he? I mean, to be honest, if we put a pair of glasses on it,
Put some holes in his jeans.
yeah, he needs to rip your jeans up. And he can kick a ball better than Lofty, this lad.
Either you're saying he's big boned, or you're saying Chris is quite fit.
Well, I mean, he's in the middle of pre-season, mate. He's going to be getting back soon at it. You know what I mean? He's got a cup final on Sunday to look at.
Sorry, Chris, we're only joking. We love you, really. We've all signed contracts, though. Let's talk about, then, some of these names that have been bandied about. I think favourite for everybody at the minute is Jonathan Woodgate. Would you like Woodgate to take over at Boro?
As a local lad, yes. Has he been around the block? Yes, he has. He's played for one of the biggest clubs in the world. George and Fred probably wouldn't agree with me there, but he's played for Real Madrid, and they're Barcelona fans. But he's played for one of the biggest clubs in the world. He was a great player in his time, good servant to the club. All that, yes. But does he know too much about the club? Can he be, is he a yes man, I'm saying? Can the chairman say, no, you're not doing that? He just goes, okay, Steve. Or is he going to go, no, I'm wagging the finger, I want this. That's the only thing what concerns me. As a bloke, he's a great bloke, and I'd love to see a young local lad do well.
What I will say before I go any further is a lot of these, as you can imagine, the bookies are going mental with who they think is going to get it. We've just taken one snapshot from one well-known bookmakers. The odds will all be different. It was done at 10 o'clock this morning.
Courtney, can you just look on the betting website, see where I am?
I think you're favourite.
Favourite now? I knew I would be.
Michael Reisiger, currently, according to this, is 5-1. Tim Walter, 11-1. Never heard of him, I'll be honest.
He's the second tier in Germany, isn't
Yeah,
he? He's doing quite well.
I was going to say he's in European football. But
I think the German thing's a bit of a trend at the minute, though. I think with
it is with
Klopp, Wagner, and then Huddersfield have brought this lad in as well. I think that's a little bit of a trend.
Actually, I mean, we read somewhere, Phil, nearly 2 weeks ago, didn't we, about Klinsmann saying he wanted to come back to the Championship and get his feet back into English football. Klinsmann, so you know, when you've got names like that getting bandied about.
We've got Nigel Pearson. Would you take Nigel Pearson?
Yes.
Why?
Because he knows the club. Very, very good captain here. and he did try, and well, he got Leicester up, didn't he? And then he played attacking football. Yes, the first season didn't work out particularly well, but his team, bearing in mind, was with a couple of additions, went on to win the league. Now, I'm not saying that was all down to Pearson, but he put the majority of those.
He signed the players.
He put the majority of those players in place. So yes, I would.
Okay.
I agree. I think he's ruthless as well. He's if you upset him in the dressing room, he's going to tell you.
Yeah, there'll be no ill discipline there.
You know, and Lee's right. I think it was 4 players different. They brought 4 players in and won the Premier League. That was Pearson's team. That. What there?
Phil Neville, obviously, he's going on to take the women's side to the World Cup final. Hopefully, win it. If you've got that prospect of taking, regardless of whether it's male or female, to a World Cup finals, potentially getting to the World Cup final, before you've even had the chance to do that, are you going to say, yeah, you know what, Boro have come calling? Would you not rather want the honour of...
For me, Phil Neville's blessed with really good footballers. They're really talented footballers. I'm not saying anybody could have got them there. However, he's blessed with some of the best female footballers in the world there. Yeah. So I think anybody could go into that job and be quite successful at it. Coming here is a... You couldn't. Coming here is a different matter completely. There's some serious work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally
Chris Hughton, obviously, as soon as he was sacked by Brighton, within a couple of hours, he's emerged as a front runner for West Brom. He's already held talks. Have we missed out on him now? Is it? Nothing's been announced. We don't know anything. We know he's held talks, but look at it. Look, you're going to be loving this.
I done that, didn't I?
Not on. That one. You didn't.
Oh, you did.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, you did.
No, they're all in line, and
that's the lad from Lincoln, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the lad from Lincoln. What? Chris
Cowley or something. Is it? No, Danny Cowley. So yeah, do you think we've already lost out on Hughton if he's spoken to West Brom already?
Is that the room that he's spoken to West Brom already? He'll go wherever the best deal is for him and wherever he thinks his best move would be. Looking at the two squads at the minute, I think there's very little between them. It'll just depend what suits him. Obviously, he's already previously had a base in the North East when he was at Newcastle.
And they love him, Newcastle fans.
I think he's done. I think other than this season, he's done it. And a lot of people will say keeping Brighton in the league is quite an achievement. So other than this season, he's proven himself over and again. So he'd be another one that I'd be more than happy to have.
Hasn't spent a lot of money, mate, has he? Hasn't spent a lot of money for the Premier League. So
being
he can do it on a budget.
Highly thought of in Newcastle, though, do you think that would prevent him from coming to and managing the Borough?
No.
Do you think is he above that?
If the results went badly, then maybe he would start getting a bit of stick. Borough fans would soon forget about that if he started to get results.
Okay. Gary Rowett, I think it was most recently at Stoke. Didn't do it with Stoke. He's obviously been sacked.
He's not on our pictures.
Would you take? He's not on our pictures. No, Courtney's just pointed that out. But would you take him?
No.
No, Mark.
No.
Sam Allardyce, Big Sam. There's rumours that he's prepared to take over at Bolton as manager.
Look,
now going into administration.
The big thing with Big Sam for me is a bit like Tony Pulis. It's what you see is what you get. You know, you're going to play that type of football again where it was maybe, you know, he's more like, I'd rather get the 3 points and hold on from 85 minutes and just park the ball. Them days for me, for our club, should be over. We should. There's people on that board and people you're talking about there who are far more like enhanced than Sam Allardyce. Do you know what I mean?
I think those days in football have gone in general. I think the game has moved on completely. I think that you look at the top managers now, and I know they've got good players: City, Liverpool, Tottenham, and then you look in the Championship, and they've got good players, but the game's moved on. Allardyce, Pulis, even Mourinho to a certain extent. It was 10 years ago when they were in the prime, because it was a very, very different game. But it's moved on now. It is more attack minded without a shadow of a doubt.
And that worries me about someone else who you've got on your list. We've got him up there as well with Phil Neville. Is Moyes. David Moyes has been touted about the Borough, hasn't he?
It's just coming out, man. Moyes.
See, it's another one I agree with Lee. Maybe he's had his day as well, you know. Great with the budget, by the way. Look what he did with Everton for all that many years. Never hardly spent a penny, you know. But the problem is that the game's moved on.
Carlos Carvajal, Steve McLaren, Neil Lennon. Obviously,
No.
that's not going to happen. He's just taken over back at Celtic.
And obviously we don't know, because we don't know nothing for sure, but Steve McLaren lives 15 miles away from here. You know, he lives up in the northeast. I'm quite sure that if there was any rumours about Steve McLaren, it would have been more in our ears and other fan channels and other fan podcasts. And
Okay then, what about Chris Coleman? He's just been sacked by the Chinese side after a few months in charge. I'll be honest, I watched Sunderland Till I Die. I thought it was a fantastic series. Probably one of the best things to come out of Sunderland.
apart from
The way he spoke, not just on camera for the cameras, but I was privileged enough to see him a few times at the Riverside and do a few press conferences with him around the North East. And he's a very honest man. And one of the things he said about one of his players, they don't want to be here, they're gone. I don't want them here. I want people at this club that are going to play for this club, play for the badge on the shirt and not the money in the arse pocket, is what he said.
You could
Is that
see
the type of manager you would want?
you could see that he would get the togetherness, because he did that with Wales, didn't he? Was it the semi-finals they got to the Euros?
Yeah.
With what I mean,
With
a
Bale.
lot of them were champion with Bale aside, and Ramsey probably.
Robson,
The rest of them
Carr,
are championship players, aren't
Yeah.
they? And he's got them to the European semi-final. I think he got up to something like 11th or 12th ranked in the world. So with what he had, he did a fantastic job. I wouldn't be against him coming.
Mark, would you accept him at the club?
It doesn't tick my boxes, but you know, for me, you are right. You know, he worked on a limited budget. Look, he can obviously instill morale and discipline into players and get them
In what sense is he not in your eyes? Because he tried to impose an attacking style of play at Sunderland. He did it successfully with Wales. Surely the attacking football would be entertaining. That's what we've been asking for.
I just think, you know, on the back of having another Welsh manager coming down after Pulis and looking at what he didn't have a really good time in China. I think he can knock a decent Chow Mein up now, but other than that, he's tactics-wise got him the sack. You know, if that's the case, why hasn't he?
Same reason that Pulis got sacked at West Brom.
Why hasn't he sprinkled
Crystal
his
Palace.
magic over there?
I don't think any of us know the real reasons why he got the sack. It could have been anything. I don't think any of us know about the team that he was at or what situation they were in. It may well have been finances.
Like Hyber, China, Fortuna, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what the setup is there. Have they got any money? You know, have they lost players?
multi-million pound.
Yeah, they've got loads of
Massive.
money.
Yeah. It's football over there is something to do with the state, so they get multi-million pound deals.
You know, I think it was something to do with his not style of football, the way he conveys his football, and obviously, you know, if coaches upset players, it's different cultures, isn't it? You know, you can say things in Britain and England and Wales and talk to people, and then you can sort of convey yourself in a different country, and players will switch off to the fact, you know. I think it's something to do with that, but again, it's all opinion. For me, he doesn't tick my boxes to be a Boro manager. I'd like to see a younger, up and coming, someone who we're going to get a good, for me, 3-4 years out of before probably another bigger job comes knocking on the door, you know. And that's what. Look, you've got to welcome that. If a bigger club comes and knocks on the door, you know, for your manager, and he's done so well for you, then remember we've had the good times. It's about a good replacement then. But for me, that's what I want to see. I'd like to see, and you haven't mentioned him yet, but I'd like to see someone like, you know, you mentioned Arteta. Gerrard's been bandied about coming from north of the border because he's seen his pal Frank Lampard doing so well in the Championship. Again, that would be a step up. You know, let's be honest. And I'm not knocking Scottish football, but there's a handful of decent sides out there. But for me, they're still Championship sides. They're not like Premier League sides, with probably a few League One players in as well. So it's a step up for Gerrard if he was to come to the Championship.
It's a massive risk.
It's a risk. He's a winner. He's attack-minded. He doesn't suffer fools.
We say it's a massive risk. Was it not a massive risk for somebody like Frank Lampard to dive straight in and take over at Derby when John Terry went to Aston Villa as a player and then became a coach?
Yeah,
I'm talking about. I was referring to Gerrard and Arteta. For me, if you're Steven Gerrard now, you've got a better chance of succeeding at Rangers, given the standard of Scottish football, without being disrespectful. You've got a far better chance of being successful there than you have coming down to us, where we've got quite a lot of problems, I think, with the club and the playing personnel. And Arteta's the same. Why would you want to? I think if he gets a job, it will be somewhere. They've obviously got him lined up for the Man City job long term. I think Pep's came out and said that. If I was him, I wouldn't want to take that chance, because if he comes in, fails here,
You can't just go.
he's got no chance of getting the Man City job. So he'd want to go somewhere with a little bit of finances, wouldn't you? Where it was pretty much a guarantee that you were going to succeed.
And that's my next point, actually. Just to finish off these: Fabrizio Ravanelli, Sol Campbell, Malcolm Christie, Tim Sherwood, Massimo Macaroni, Afonso Alves, and Jose Mourinho have all been bandied about as well, from 33 to 1 up to 100 to 1 there. Other names mentioned: Danny Cowley, Mikel Arteta, Slaven Bilic, Curtis Fleming, and Craig Hignett, obviously, who's currently sort of in charge there or thereabouts up at Hartlepool.
What I would say, just before we move on, Phil, is regarding Arteta and Gerrard, the amount of networking they bring to a club as your first man, and that's to a point. That's what Frank's done at Derby. He's used his nous, knowing the Premier League sides, knowing the chairmans, knowing other players, and he's gone in and brought decent loan signings in, and that could be a move for our club. If we haven't got the finances, you bring someone like, again, Arteta, and Lee's right, Pep's bandied it about. It's quite clear that they want him to succeed in, but he's got to go somewhere and achieve something. If he can go there and have the pick of the crop of Man City's second tier, which, bearing in mind, under the fair play rules now, actually, you can bring as many loan signings in before a certain day as you want. If the club look at it that way, Steven Gerrard, again, could do a lot of networking with Liverpool, and all the clubs around the Premier League. That's what I'm thinking, that from that side of the point as well.
See, I agree with that, but I think Gibson's already come out and spoke about the negatives of the likes of Derby and Villa bringing in so many loan players. I think he's against it, from what I can gather.
He is, but they've actually, the EFL have just gone against him and said, well, actually, there's no rule. There's no, because that was our chairman's main argument, wasn't he? You're saying that we've got to go under fair play rules, and I've got to sell players, and because I'm paying too much money and things like that. But you're bringing players in from Chelsea and Liverpool and Everton on loan. Well, stop whinging about it. You do it. You do it.
Mm.
And I think that's the way we could go with the likes of Arteta. And look, no disrespect to someone like Danny Cowley, who Chris has mentioned many times. Would he have the networking skills to do that? No. Would Nigel Pearson have the networking skills to do that? He's been out the game for so long. No. Would he do it? No. Pulis couldn't, because there's rumours that players didn't want to come and play for him. Houghton, could he do it now? I think the likes of Phil Neville, young manager, could. Gerrard could. Frank Lampard can. And obviously, if you go on Reisiger, he's then got his networking in it. Ajax, and he can bring. You've got to look at the massive picture, and I think that's what the club, I think, are going to do, and hopefully it will be a younger type thrusting manager. Going
back to the names that you mentioned, there's two that I'm really surprised that haven't been mentioned at all. There's the lad at Swansea, Potter from Swansea, was at the Swedish club.
Yeah.
Now, I know he's fancied for the Brighton job, but they're playing some fantastic football at the minute, Swansea. And Lee Johnson from Bristol, it's never been mentioned, but every time I've watched Bristol, they've been absolutely fantastic, and he's doing that with no money whatsoever, and he's got them playing like some brilliant football. His name hasn't been mentioned yet, which I'm quite surprised about.
But like Mark's just alluded to there, are any of these managers or potential managers going to want to come into the club, possibly knowing that there's no money in the coffers to bring anybody in? A manager with prestige, somebody like Chris Houghton, Nigel Pearson, David Moyes, Phil, if they come into the club, they're going to want assurances that there's going to be money there to spend. If Steve Gibson can't give them that or persuade them that there will be money there, surely the majority of all of these experienced managers are going to be taking the name straight back out that hat, to the point where we're probably going to be left with somebody like Jonathan Woodgate, Curtis Fleming.
I still think we're enough of a pull as a club. It's still a big enough club that we would still attract managers. Yes, we might not be able to attract some of the names that we've mentioned about for that reason, for the fact that it would appear that we haven't got a load of money going forward. We've still got enough good, we've got the fan base, we've got the stadium. We're still a big enough club where we'll be able to attract a good manager, and it's not all about money. If you get the right person, you've only got to look at Norwich this year.
Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. If you get the right person in place with the right players in that league, then you can progress anywhere.
In terms of players that could potentially leave the club this summer, Darren Randolph's had a fantastic season. I have no doubts there's probably going to be a bit of a fight for him on Boro's hands. Do you think that Britt Assombalonga is going to stay?
Well, I mean, I think
it's not really worked for him the last few
I
years since he's come.
Has he not been linked with Sheffield United in recent press? Sheffield United, and I think I said, there's probably people going to shoot me down here, but I think that, to a certain extent, the Premier League would probably suit Assombalonga. The fact that it's a little bit more slower, and they do go, that instead of us going side to side and backwards, they're going to try and get the ball to him, and he'd probably score goals in the Premier League, Assombalonga. But for me, it's all about the new gaffer. He's going to come in. I think there's some nailed on who will leave. Obviously all the loan guys have gone back. Your Vesic and the Ugils and people like they've all gone back. But then you've got people like Gestead who hasn't featured at all, who's probably thinking I need to go. But as for the likes of young Fletcher and people like that, we need to be trying to keep older players like that.
There is the potential. So there's the potential. So Randolph, Assombalonga, Clayton has come out in recent weeks and sort of felt threatened by the loss of his position. Now that Mikel's obviously, or will I presume, be leaving the club in the not too distant future, he may choose to stay. He may not. Flint's not had the best of seasons. He's probably going to stay, but what does that then mean for the likes of Dale Fry? What does that mean for Daniel Ayala? They're not going to want the three set. We've got Ryan Shotton as well. Is he going to stay? Is he going to move? There's probably a lot more likely to leave the club this summer than there are to stay. The concern is, are they going to want to hang around? Because as it stands, the club are in no rush to appoint a manager. They want to take the time. They want to appoint the best person for the job. I totally disagree with that. I think we need to bring somebody in early enough. The likes of Chris Hughton is available. Nigel Pearson, whoever. Don't do that typical Boro thing where we wait and the day before the season's about to start.
I don't agree with that, Phil, because I don't think that the Boro would have came out. Bear in mind, if you read the press and you believe it, Tony Pulis' contract finished on the 1st of June. There was no need for the Boro to come out at all today and tell us that his contract wasn't going to be extended and he's leaving the club.
They could have waited a week, even though he's gone.
For my eyes, they've already got someone in line. They've got someone to announce, not to maybe announce, but they're crossing the T's and they're dotting the I's as we speak. Otherwise, there was no need to come out with this and say, we're going to take our time.
It's only a week.
It's nonsense.
Has he walked? Has he been sacked? Because if he's walked, yes, it's only around about a week, might be 8 days worth of pay that he's going to forfeit because he's walked. But if the club have sacked him like the reports were, the club are still going to have to pay off. And I know it's only a week's wage, but if some of these players are on 30, 40, 50 grand a week, it's still a lot of money if you sack him that you're going to have to pay, but then still try and bring in somebody else.
I'd be surprised if that wasn't a mutual agreement in the fact that I think it's been well documented that the chairman and Pulis got on quite well. They both appear to be, as much as I don't rate Pulis as a manager, he does appear to be a gentleman. I think there will have been a mutual agreement between the two that he would go at the earliest opportunity so that we could then look to getting the next man in or give us the maximum amount of time to get the next person in.
Again, if you believe in the press what you read, this was discussed over a family meal. The Gibson family and the Pulis family were out dining together when this came up, and they agreed. And that's how I believe it's come out mutually. My point is, why today? Because if you're hanging around and you think we're in no rush to appoint a manager, well, you are really, because that new manager might want to try and bend Mikel's ear to stay. You might have clubs now touting at Randolph saying, "Give you this." By far being our best player all season, Randolph. I don't see the much of Clayton, because Clayton's just opened his new soccer academy up in the Boro and things like that. I think he loves the area. I think he'd want to stay. Whether the new gaffer wants him to stay, I don't know. Downan's another one, out of contract. Would that new gaffer now coming in want to keep him in the Championship?
But is Downing going to want to stay and commit to another season, knowing that he's just had his old contract torn up, so that he can and continue to play at a club that might have just fobbed him off of an extra 25 grand a week?
There was rumours 2 weeks ago, mate, that he was going to be offered another season deal down in. But then again, would you do that when you've just seen your old contract be bandied about in front of your face and you can't play after so many games? Or do you just walk away and say thank you very much? You know, look, he's at his hometown club. You know, logistically it's easy for him, and everyone, you know, he's back home playing football, something he loves doing. So I think if it works for all three parties, you're going to try and keep him, aren't you? But for me, it's down to the gaffer, and if you need a gaffer, and that's the only thing what upsets me with Woody is, I'd love Woody to get the job, but don't be a yes man. Don't come in and just say, yeah, I've been on the coaching staff and I know how we work, and no, we can't play this style of football. We can't. That's not what I want. I want him to come in and stamp his authority and say, you know, you cut me in half and I bleed Boro. That's what he should be saying. And having a go at the players. If he does that, he'd get my backing, if you want the truth, with him being a local lad. He's young, you know, he's been around the block. Wow.
So surely, with the potential for so many players to leave the club, we need to appoint somebody as soon as possible, because it's going to take a long time to rebuild a squad ready for the start. And if we wait 4 weeks, that gives whatever manager is that comes in a week to assess the squad he's got. That probably some of them will be away, because obviously this summer, I think it is, have we got this Nations League finals, so some players within the squad will be away on international duty anyway. But they're going to have a week to assess the squad, a couple of days to try and compile a list, and then a week, 2 weeks maybe, to try and bring in as many players that they want as they can, provided that the club are going to back whatever manager comes in. Is that the...
I'm not sure there will be wholesale changes. I mean, at the end of the day, the players are on contracts. They can't, you know, and they're not really that attractive a proposition at the minute, given that the season that they've just had. There won't be that many clubs bursting through the door to come and sign some of our players.
But if you're a team like Sheffield United, who have just gone up, with Britt Sombalonga having such a bad season, we've paid 15 for him. If they come in with an offer of 5 or 6 million, the club are probably going to say yes if it's 5 or 6 million back in the kitty to buy another. They'll take that loss.
I think if they sell him, they'll get more than that for him. I think.
But yeah, potentially. But what I'm saying is, because they've had such a bad season, there's nothing stopping a team coming in and saying, "Well, we're not giving you 15. We're not even giving you 8."
No, and
he scored 15 goals.
Well, then, if the money's not right for us to sell him, he just won't go. For me, I'm not sure that there will be wholesale. I think, as per every summer, there will be comings and goings, and without a shadow of a doubt, we need 4 or 5 players. But if I looked at the squad at the start of last season, it was one of the strongest squads in the league. You've only got to look at the bookies' odds at the start of we were one of the favourites. I think we were probably the favourite, wasn't Stoke, to go up. The squad, it doesn't turn into a bad squad overnight. I just think we need to find 4 or 5 players to come in to add to what we've got, and then find a formation, a style of play that suits the players that we've already got in place.
And we haven't even mentioned a World Cup player in Martin Braithwaite.
I wasn't going to, if I'm honest with you.
Well, a new manager, mate, might want him to come down and have a chat with him, because he's got to come back. He's a contracted player.
Mm-hmm.
But is he done too much now to almost make it impossible for him to come back and play? The fans are not going to accept him, the attitude that he's had.
New manager comes out, arm round him, tells us that he's committed, scores 2 goals on the opening day of the season, not one of us will bat an eyelid. Because all he'll do is blame Pulis. He blamed Pulis himself, and he Braithwaite.
Yeah.
He blamed Pulis. Didn't blame the club, in my opinion. Didn't say the area is terrible, they give me an horrible house, I don't like going drinking here. He didn't say that. He called Pulis and basically said his style of football is strange. That's his exact words he used. His kick and rush football is strange, he said.
You talked about players getting disheartened with style of players earlier on, didn't you?
Yeah.
I would imagine that Braithwaite was pulling whatever air he's got, pulling it out. Playing for Pulis, for him, for his type of player, that will not be for him at all, because for me, Braithwaite would have been one of the best players in the Championship. His attitude may well have been wrong, but if he was playing for Norwich or if he was playing for Bielsa at Leeds, he'd have absolutely tore that league up this year, because he's a fantastic footballer.
Final comment from the fans there. Dan Dobson's been on and says, I'd sell Savile for a new bag of balls and corner flags. And Holgate Enders...
That's happened before.
Holgate Enders been on and said, need to bring in sooner in terms of a manager. To get the ball rolling, new players won't sign with the uncertainty around the club.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Gents, we're going to call it there. Thank you very much for coming on. This is probably the last time now.
Is it, Defo? Because it was the last
Hope
time
so.
we were on the other day.
That you're going to see us this season. Thank you very much for joining us. You've been fantastic. We've been great as well. Chris, thanks for doing what you've done. Courtney, thanks for doing what you've done. Joe, thanks for doing what you've done. Dave, thanks for doing what you've done. Lee, thanks. I'm going to thank all the fans here. And Mark, you've done all right as well. Did I forget you?
Come on, I'm getting a BAFTA.
Not for that, you're not. But thank you very much. There's one final thing to say there.
Don't mention RedArmy Radio.
I'm not yet. I'm being badgered. And it's a bit of a kudos, really, to Grant Ledbetter. He lost his mum this week. Yesterday, I think it was. Played a full 90 minutes last night. That's the type of player that Boro are missing.
That's the sign of a true professional, mate. Simple as that. True professional. And you know what? Good luck to him. Good luck to Sunderland. You don't want to hear me saying that very often. Good luck to Sunderland.
Quack it.
Yeah, quack that out, yeah. But no, look, he's a player who wears his heart on his sleeve, gives you everything in every minute. And at the minute, they're hard to come by in the Championship.
I watched the game last night as well, unfortunately, and he was an absolute leader on the pitch as well. He was the one flying at the tackles. He was one geeing his teammates up, and given what had gone on, I didn't know that, but he was top draw.
Yeah, absolutely. So Grant, well done. Gents, thank you very much. We are going to end it right now if Courtney's ready with a buzzer. The final thing I'll say is RedArmy Radio is launching at the start of next season. 24/7 Boro bollocks, banter, whatever you want to say. It's a platform for you guys to talk as well as us. So please do get involved with that. Other than that, thank you very much. We will catch you next season.
All right.